Okay, well, we're going to get started. So, good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm Andrea Sampson, the CEO, and uh, I apparently don't know who I am today. I'm Andrea Sampson, the CEO of Talk Boutique and your host and moderator of today's Sense Making Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. This morning, I read on one of the many blogs that I follow that we're entering eclipse season. I mean, who knew such a thing existed? It seems that with eclipses come change. Now, if you're like me, you're likely thinking, more change? Really? Do we need more change? I mean, who here wants to be thrust out of their comfort zones yet again? I don't know that I've even found a comfort zone, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But what I do know is that we all need a little more fun in our lives. And for me, fun comes through creativity and curiosity. I mean, I love nothing more than to have a creative challenge to dig into. That could be creating a new jewelry project or my newest creative challenge, which is knitting. Yeah, I know, knitting. I'm still learning that one, but it's giving me lots of challenges. Or it could be creative problem solving, and that's actually where I really love to be. These past few months here at Talk Boutique, we've been creating new products and testing them, and that's been really interesting. Now, if you weren't on our webinar yesterday, we announced the launch of our new Storytelling for Presenters program. This is a 6-week virtual program aimed at upping your presentation game. It helps you to easily create your presentations and to deliver them with confidence. If you're interested in learning more, just send me a note. We'd be happy to get some information to you. But I tell you this because, we've been talking about developing this program for almost a year, but there never seemed to be the right time or the right opportunity to actually get it created. Then change came marching into our world with the pandemic lockdown, and we developed, piloted, and launched it in less than 8 weeks. It's incredible what change will inspire. It's often these openings that we couldn't have seen while we're operating within our comfort zone, right? Change gives us these openings. It drives a new curiosity for what could be. What can you create from this place? And curiosity is exactly what drives today's guest, Karen Ward. In our time together today, Karen is going to explore with us why curiosity is crucial to the success of organizations moving forward. She says that without curiosity, there is no creativity, innovation, or change. Building a culture of curiosity and a strong curiosity muscle is the fuels that organizations need to reimagine and implement what's next. Karen is the founder of Curiosity Inc., a consultancy that helps teams strengthen their curiosity, creativity, and collaboration muscles. And Curiosity Global, an online community devoted to driving change through acts of curiosity, creativity, and connection. Prior to founding Curiosity in 2005, Karen worked as a strategist and insight specialist for a number of Fortune 500 clients and large advertising agencies in both Canada and the US, helping them to craft meaningful, people-centered businesses and communication strategies. Karen is an avid traveler, and these days she enjoys trips to the local supermarket and wandering around her living room library, which we can actually see behind her. You're going to
Yes.
see in just a moment. Karen is passionate about unlocking the power and the promise of curiosity in organizations and in individuals so they can grow and do good in the world. I am so incredibly excited to talk to Karen today. I have known Karen for many, many years, and we have been on many curiosity adventures together. So Karen, tell us about this concept of curiosity muscles. I'm sure many of us don't even know that we have them. How can we, how can we exercise these muscles, and why are they important?
Well, do you want me? Hi, everybody. Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for inviting me into this series. I'm sorry that I don't know how to, hold on. I thought I had turned off all my, everything's turned off. Why is it still, can you hear that when it ding through? Sorry about that. Let me see if I can.
No, it's okay. We actually
It's
couldn't.
okay. Oh, you couldn't. Okay, it's just me. I'm like, it's ringing in my ears. I apologize. Anyway, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here. As you mentioned, I am here in my large library that I have never been more appreciative of in the last 2 months than I am right now. I have so much to say about curiosity, and I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot about over the last 2 months is the importance of, and Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this a lot in her work as well, the importance of choosing curiosity over fear. And if we can't choose curiosity over fear, we can, at the very least, invite curiosity in to help us move through fear, move through overwhelm, move through the uncertainty that is so present in all of our lives and work right now. So I would love to do a couple of things today in our conversation. I'd love to make a case for curiosity and why it really does matter in organizations now more than ever. And then share, I really like sharing examples or case studies, share a little example of an experience that I've been running over the last 3.5 years with a global community, and just in the last year, now starting to bring it into organizations, as an example of how we are using curiosity to bring teams closer together, to ignite their curiosity and stimulate and spark their creativity. So if it's okay, I did bring a few slides with me today because I thought it would be nice to disrupt the talking head wallpaper that we're so used to these days with some really colorful slides. So I'll just flip over to those. I'll make sure we'll go to the beginning here and full screen. So I'm hoping, I can't see video. I'm hoping that everybody can see these. So the metaphor that I was thinking about coming into this conversation was how, in my experience, working as an innovation consultant, as a strategist, as a researcher over the last 20 or so years, that how true it is now more than ever that curiosity really is the fuel that we all need as individuals and as organizations to drive what's next. And given how much uncertainty, we just don't know what's coming and what's ahead of us. Curiosity is, I think, if not one of the tools, it's maybe perhaps the tool that can really support us as we move forward into all of this uncertainty. So I've chosen this, the engine metaphor, fuel for what your what's next engine. And I found this great little picture. I feel like this feels like what's true right now, that we're in a car, it's on a ledge, it's feeling kind of scary. You know, the thought bubble or the speech bubble is yikes. What is happening in the world? What does it mean for me as a person, for my team at work, for the organization that I work for? The other metaphor, and Andrea and I talked about this before, I used to do a keynote years ago that used this metaphor. So I'll offer it as well in case the car one doesn't work as well or the muscle one is confusing. I really like this metaphor too, that curiosity is to innovation, and because we're adults here, all grown-ups here, curiosity is to innovation as sex is to procreation. You have to have some to get some. So you need to have some curiosity to drive towards innovation. And of course you need to have some sex to be able to procreate. Although that's, you know, you don't even necessarily need that these days anymore, but I think the metaphor is clear. So in my view, curiosity is really, really important. And it is the foundation, it is the starting point when we are looking for creative ideas, new solutions, and, you know, looking to mine opportunities that are all around us. So the question that I have for the group is, how are you doing? How do you feel like you're doing right now when it comes to curiosity? Does your curiosity feel really engaged? Are you feeling strong? Do those curiosity muscles feel like they've got some suppleness and some strength to them? And are they well activated right now? Or do you feel like your curiosity is, you know, all of that uncertainty is fighting with your ability to ask great questions and wonder creatively about what's next and how we might move forward? So I'd love just to take a minute in the chat to tell me how you're doing from a curiosity perspective. If there's a scale of 1 to 10 where 1 is, I couldn't find my curiosity muscles if you paid me $1 million, with 10 being they're on fire and I'm just engaging them so actively every day. Give me a sense of where you feel like you're at. Okay, so it's a mix, which makes sense because it can be challenging in times of uncertainty to really engage with the inquiry part of our brain, the questioning part of our brain, because it's overwhelming when everything is a big fat question. But I would love today to talk about two things: make the case for curiosity and why it really matters as for you as an individual and in your organization. And also, as I mentioned off the top, talk about an experience that we've been doing with teams to bring more curiosity and a bit more creativity and connection into their team and collaborative context. So the first thing, the case, make the case for curiosity. And I love this quote from this was a Harvard Business Review piece, actually an entire, I was gonna say episode, my gosh, I spent way too much time on Netflix, an entire issue that was focused on curiosity. And this is a quote from early on in one of the articles in that episode, in that issue. Cultivating curiosity at all levels helps leaders and their employees adapt to uncertain market conditions and external pressures. So I don't know, does this feel relevant to anybody right now? Anyone feeling a sense of uncertainty? Of course, when this, the piece was written a couple of years ago, we couldn't have possibly imagined what we're in right now, but we're in so much uncertainty right now. The external pressures are both market pressures, they're, health crisis pressures, economic pressures, global community pressures. There's so much putting pressure on us as individuals and organizations right now that curiosity is critical. So why is that? So in my experience, and based on lots of reading and research I've done over the last decade or more, curiosity really builds trust. So I had a great conversation with a former COO last week, and she was telling me that when in her role as a COO, she worked for a large organization in the United States. She really took on initially when she was promoted into that role, she took on this really deep sense of responsibility, of knowing things, of having all the answers, of being like the go-to person that could figure things out or engage her team to figure things out. And she's like, I literally had an eye roll worthy of Tina Fey's character on 30 Rock response to curiosity. I just thought it was so unnecessary, a total waste of time, especially in my role as a chief operating officer, because it was my job to know stuff and to get stuff done. And what she said is what she found is when she slowly came around to the idea that curiosity might actually be beneficial in her role and supportive to her team and the organization overall, something really powerful happened. There was a shift from her knowing to asking questions. And what happened is that the relationships with her executive level colleagues deepened because there was more trust and connection between them. She had a much better relationship with her team because she came to their work together as a collaborator instead of a dictator. That was her language. And she said, I got so much more out of them because I was modeling curiosity, and that meant that they were able to come to me in the spirit of trust and openness to ask questions, make suggestions that they never would have otherwise because they felt uncomfortable, coming to the boss that knew it all and had so much certainty about how things should be done. So she said everything got better, relationships, the quality of our work, the systems and operations that we were building for the business got stronger and more robust. And she said everything changed. And that for her, that was really built around this notion of trust, and that the respect that she was able to glean from her colleagues and her staff also really deepened. So curiosity builds trust because it's at its core is openness. It also fosters connection, collaboration, and communications, many of my favorite C's here. The other thing it does is it diffuses conflict. So when a team of individuals comes to their work together from a place of openness and curiosity and inquiry, rather than certainty and assertive, aggression or needing to prove that they're right, the work not only gets better, but the experience of doing the work gets better. Lines of communication open, people ask more questions. And as a result of more information being shared amongst and between teams, they're better able to solve problems, to come up with creative solutions, and they feel more connected. Like one of the things that's really important around this piece of connection and communication is that curiosity really nurtures empathy. So if I can, come from a place of curiosity and openness and ask questions that help me better understand someone else's point of view, may not mean that I'll ever come around to it or agree with them 100%, but that empathy and openness to other perspectives, other points of view really helps foster connection, collaboration, and communication, and ultimately creativity and innovation, which is where we're going next. So it really does fuel creativity. There's great research that's been done that was cited in this Harvard Business Review set of articles and other research that's been done over the last 20 years that shows that teams and individuals that index higher on curiosity are much more likely to approach problems with more creatively, with more creativity, with more openness to what might be possible, because they bring into that creative problem solving questions like, how might we, what are all the ways we could, what if, why not, how, all of those great questions. And those questions, curiosity fueled questions are springboards into great creative problem solving, into great idea generation, into great solution finding. So it's the reason why this, fuel metaphor is so powerful for me, that without curiosity, I'm not even sure how you get started on creativity. It's so difficult because it always starts with like a niggling of a question or something you're wondering about, or something that's novel that has you lean in with interest. It all starts with that instinct, that impulse. And then if you can ride that curiosity throughout a creative problem solving process, your solutions are going to be so much more relevant and hopefully profitable and meaningful to the people that you're building and developing for. So curiosity fuels creativity. And then finally, and this feels equally important, I think, as creativity and the other pieces we've talked about, it also improves decision making. When you come to figuring things out from a place of curiosity, you're much less likely to be looking for information or insight or points of view that confirm your own perspective, which is inherently biased. We all carry around our own biases. So this is really important at a time where there's so much change that the certainty that we might feel is very likely not relevant anymore, or less relevant now. So coming to our decision making and our planning, even if it's short-term planning, with a sense of openness and curiosity and inquiry is so critical, because our decisions will be better when we approach it from a curiosity perspective. We are better at gathering information from more diverse sources and perspectives, and sharing that effectively across or within a team, across an organization, which means we are making better decisions. And that is very good news, especially in times of pretty deep uncertainty. So what makes it hard? And of course, it is, this is all great. The case, I hope, is clear, but what makes it hard? And there are many things, but I think the core thing from my perspective is in a way simple and in a way so complex. And it really is mindset. We have to believe that there's value in curiosity. We have to believe that even though curiosity can feel messy and inefficient, it's really important for us to lean into that mindset of curiosity. Andrea, did you have questions before we move on into the example that I'd love to share?
No, you keep going.
Okay, good. You just popped back up and I thought,
yeah.
oh, maybe she has a question. Okay, cool.
Nope.
So on this, I'll just pause for a minute. They are repairing the roof in my building and they've just come back from lunch break. So if you hear loud banging, I apologize in advance. If someone comes through the ceiling, please call 911. So yes, mindset is key. And I think this is really important from a leader perspective, to make sure that you hold the mindset that curiosity is important, has value in the way you're doing the work, in the work that you're doing, and that you're modeling that mindset and the behaviors related to that mindset. You're modeling that for your team. So I want to share an experience that we've been doing with teams since last fall that is really modeled around this idea that curiosity matters. It is really important when it comes to fueling creativity and innovation, and also connection. So we center all of our work at Curiosity Inc., which is our the organization that we that we do our corporate work through, and then Curiosity Global, which is the work that we do with a community, an online community. It's all pivots around these three areas: curiosity, creativity, and connection. And we're always looking for ways to bring these three concepts, these three experiences, these three sets of behavior together in all of the work that we do. And so these three things really inform this experience that we created called My Curious Eyes. Now, it was originally conceived when I was in Lisbon in 2017, being a wandering wanderer, being curious over in Portugal. And I was wandering around the streets of Lisbon, just enamored with the place, completely taken with the colors and the architecture and the colors and the people and the food and the pastéis de nata tarts. And I was sharing a lot of it online, and I kept getting this really consistent feedback, the same language. People would say, I love seeing Lisbon through your eyes. And as a former researcher, that pattern was really interesting to me. And I thought, well, that's so curious. I would actually really like to see other people's lives through their eyes. And what would happen if we did a project like that, where we invited people from around the world to share what they were seeing in their daily lives. So that was the beginning of it 3.5 years ago. And now we have a kind of more rigorous framework that we put around the project. And this is a framework that we teach our clients in terms of like, how do you more actively bring curiosity into your work, bring the fruits of curiosity into your work. And it's a four-part framework that really overlays the experience of the My Curious Eyes project. So there's intention, which for me is having a belief or an intention that inspiration is everywhere, that there are ideas and insights and inspiration all around us. We need to invite ourselves to pay attention and to tune into what's around us. And the Curious Eyes experience really helps people do that. And then we need a way of collecting what we're seeing around us, whether we're reading, watching Netflix. I get lots of ideas watching Netflix, which justifies my addiction to streaming video platforms. But you do need to, rather than just letting it wash over you, or in addition to letting it wash over you, because sometimes we really need that to be entertained and just turn our brains off a little bit. But we do need a way of collecting it. And I do that personally in my work through things like Evernote and Notion and just plain good old-fashioned notebooks. In the Curious Eyes experience, you'll see in a minute that we do that through photography. So people take pictures of what they're seeing around them. That's the way we collect what we're paying attention to. And then finally, we need to have a way to look at that stuff together, kind of in one place. If it's just you doing it in one place, you can start to see the patterns and the themes and the threads, because that's when creativity starts happening. A curiosity is collecting things and inviting stimulus into our lives, interesting stimulus into our lives. Then I think, and many others smarter than me have talked about the fact that creativity is about connecting things. But we need to be able to see those things in a place or locate them together so we can start seeing those connections, themes and threads, patterns. So this is a framework that we use a lot in the work that we do with our clients, and it is the experience that we host with My Curious Eyes. So as I mentioned, if curiosity is collecting dots, then creativity is connecting them. And that's what we invite people to do with My Curious Eyes. So the intention in the My Curious Eyes experience, it is an online experience, which is what's made it in a way perfect for right now, because everyone is a distributed team right now. So it's a great team building, team connecting, curiosity muscle boosting experience that we host online. And the intention is set by us. So it runs for 2 weeks, and every day I will send out a prompt that invites people to engage with their world, their day, through the lens of a prompt. So it can be anything from color to shape to texture, which are more kind of, on the nose, easy prompts, if you will. But we also get into more conceptual prompts like awaken, constraint. I just did a project with the team, a not-for-profit team in Toronto a few weeks ago, and constraint was one of the prompts, and it generated so much interesting imagery and really interesting conversations around what constraint means, especially right now. And then, concepts like trust as well. So everybody gets the prompt in the morning, and then they go out into their day and they pay attention, they tune in, they turn on their curiosity radar, through the lens of that prompt. They look through that lens at their world around them through that lens. And then they take pictures throughout the day. And this, from the not-for-profit team that we just worked with, these are some of the, oops. So these are some of the pictures that came up. So we've got everything from like a goat farm in the United States with their awesome goat crossing photo, to books, to pictures of, you know, places that give them hope and a sense of peace, somebody's mask that they've washed and they hang up overnight, to someone's, you know, little hope stone in their garden, to found objects. And again, this is a way that, you know, we come together around these images as a community, as a team, to talk about what they mean and what might be here for us from the point of view of like insights and ideas. And then we, like I said, we come together and we connect over those images. And these are some of the things that the team that we worked with most recently said coming out of that intention, attention, collection, and connection experience. And I love these quotes. They make me so happy. So many great ideas bubbled up from this process. It was such a great surprise. We were able to connect with ourselves and each other around and the world around us in a totally fresh way. What a great team experience. It brought curiosity and insight and fun to a challenging situation, because we did the Curious Eyes experience with them a week after everybody went home. So the timing was really powerful because they had all gone into isolation and they were a team that came in and worked at the office together every day. So it was a really big change. And then another woman on the project said, I love getting little glimpses into people's lives. It was a really interesting way to get curious and creative together and feel much more connected during such an isolated time. And we hear that a lot. Like, it gives us a way to stay in touch with each other and stay connected and tuned into each other that feels less heavy and hard and kind of like mandatory. Because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about these, like, you know, Sankaset or, you know, happy hours at 5 o'clock on Zoom when everybody's spent all day on Zoom already. And it's really well intentioned, those sessions, but it feels like more work and more of the same on top of the same. Whereas Curious Eyes, something like this, where people are doing it asynchronously, they don't have to be on at the same time, but they're still doing activities together that brings that connection, that stimulates the curiosity and sparks creativity. And this final quote I love so much. This guy said, I can't believe how much more grateful I feel. This experience has really changed my perspective about what's going on. And I think we didn't talk about this at the beginning when I was making the case for curiosity, but this is another gift that curiosity brings. And that is a sense of gratitude and mindfulness, even in really difficult circumstances. So that's my pitch. That's the case for curiosity. That's a little example of how we're using curiosity to bring teams together to help them, you know, keep their curiosity muscles flexed and strong, and using that curiosity to develop great ideas and creative solutions to some of the things that they're facing.
Thanks so much.
Here's my invitation. Yeah, choose curiosity over fear, because doing that is going to help us all create what's next.
Thank you for that. That is, and you know me, you know that curiosity is one of my favorite conversation topics. So, and you know, I was one of those people watching you as you ate your way through Lisbon, as I recall.
I really did.
And I was one of the first participants in the My Curious Eyes project, which I absolutely.
You were.
And, you know, the project, watching you, you know, watching Lisbon through your eyes certainly did inspire me to visit that beautiful city, actually several times now.
Yeah,
but also it is a special place, but also the really interesting ways in which you saw that city. And the My Curious Eyes, of course, helped to gain some of that that perspective as we look out into the world, and whether it be through the prompt of color or the prompt of texture or the prompt of one of the, you know, many other prompts that you have. But and I know because I've done actually My Curious Eyes several times, is that it's not something that just happens during the My Curious Eyes project, but we continue to reap the benefit of that curiosity.
Yes.
And for me, you know, one of the things that I'm curious and to talk to you about is to say, look, we do these things, and this project that you just did with this not-for-profit certainly started to show how it opened people's perspectives up. But how about the impact that it has on innovation? Where can you tie that line together?
Well, I think, again, as I mentioned, as it relates to creativity, I think innovation's a non-starter if there is no curiosity. So, people talk about, well, what's the through line from, curiosity to innovation? And, there certainly is one, but I want to keep reinforcing that, people get very excited about innovation because they see that's what, will help drive change and drives the bottom line quite often. But I keep coming back to, it's like, if there's you can't skip the step of curiosity. You can't, you must start there. And from there, curiosity fuels creativity. And I think innovation really is, practical, monetized, structured creativity. It's bringing creativity to the market in an interesting way, whether it's for sale or, for service, as a service to the community.
Right.
So I think it is, it starts with curiosity. And then the other thing that I would say is, from a creative problem solving and an innovation process perspective, you need to keep curiosity alive throughout an innovation process. Because again, innovation, I have never worked on a project or been privy to the work on a new product or service that's linear. It never goes from ooh, we have a question about this. We think there might be a need here, to bam, straight line, new product in the market, doing fabulously well. It's a very messy, non-linear process. And so you have to keep curiosity alive and well. You're going to keep coming back to questions, more questions, different questions as you go through that innovation or that design thinking process. And if curiosity dies, if you think it's only at the beginning, it's oh, now we've got curiosity out of the way, we can stop asking questions because we've got it sorted. Your innovation's going to stall, and or what comes out of your innovation work is not going to have the same resonance or relevance as it would if you kept asking those questions throughout about, is this as relevant as it could be? How can we make it better? Is it, as you're learning, as you go through, what I would recommend from an iterative innovation process, you're continuing to learn, concept, prototype, learn, you have to keep curiosity alive throughout. Yeah.
I find that interesting because I think that, and I work with a lot of people, as I know you do, and because we both come out of the advertising world, we've grown up literally around creative people. That's a part of the place in which we exist. But now, as I move into the world that I'm in now and start working with a lot of different people, especially people who come from academia or science or technology, I often hear, "Oh, I'm not creative at all. I don't have
so not true."
And I agree with you. And I always chuckle a little bit because I'll usually find out, halfway through that conversation that they play in a band or that they paint on the weekends. But here's the thing, because I think people who think of themselves as not creative often also think of curiosity as something that is not helpful. And so what would you say to those individuals? Because I actually think they're intensely curious, but they don't call it that. And so how can we bridge it? How can we bridge it so it goes into a language that is maybe a little more accessible?
I'm curious to know what they call it if it's not curiosity, because curiosity feels like the most basic foundational language to me. It's how we roll around in the world as kids. It's how we figure it out. So I'm curious to know what people in those communities would identify it as if it's not curiosity.
And I want to be clear, not everybody in those communities, of course, there are many. And so I don't want to paint with one brush, but I often hear it as, I'm a researcher. I believe in fact. It's, it has to be underpinned with truth. And that's the language that I hear. And for me, research is nothing more than curiosity.
Organized curiosity. Exactly.
Well, it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And and I know you're a researcher, so so talk about that. Talk about the how curiosity fuels research.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because those domains that you mentioned, like academia, technology, science, I think people in those spheres model curiosity, especially in science. and tech, like they are modeling curiosity and curiosity driven research often better than people in creative industries.
Yep.
And this was, you know, truthfully one of my frustrations as I was leaving advertising, that in this creative industry, I felt a void of curiosity a lot around me. I'm like, why aren't we asking more questions, better questions? Why are we accepting the status quo and how it's always been done? That doesn't feel good enough in an industry that's meant to be, you know, that's venerated for being so creative. So I wonder if curiosity, because what I hear a lot about curiosity, or what I've heard not as much recently, like in the last 5 years, but certainly when I started Curiosity in 2005, it was hard to have a conversation about it because people just thought it was a waste of time. It's like, oh, we're just gonna like sit around and ask questions and not do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not exactly what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that we stay in the questions longer so that we've got really great insight to build what's next on. So to do that creative problem solving, to do the concept development, to do the prototyping, to do, you know, the creative development that you would do at an ad agency, for example, because we need to make sure we're solving the right problem. We need to make sure we've identified through curiosity what it is we're setting out to address with the work that follows. And we need to continue to make sure we're solving the right problem as we go through that development process. So I think, you know, when I hear things like it needs to be underpinned by facts or it needs to be, you know, based in truth, I'm like, yes, it does, which is exactly why we need to be deeply curious all the time throughout and not settle into complacency, not settle into certainty, because that's the death of innovation and creativity. Yeah.
And I love the way you framed that, to stay in the question longer.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's something so profound about that concept because, you know, as humans, we want the answer.
Of
right?
course we do.
We're always
I love answers too.
Yeah, but answers are kind of boring, actually, right? You know, because there's once something is answered, there's no, you know, it's like, yeah, there's sometimes are more questions, but a lot of times it's an ending point. Whereas when we stay in that question, we're exploring, we're looking, we're finding, we're discovering. It's such a beautiful place to live when you're inside of a question.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, we had another leader here by the name of Melanie Parrish, and she's just recently written a book called The Experimental Leader. And I love Melanie's stuff because it's so, you know, it's so needed in this moment. Of course, we're all in a place of experimentation. And I think I heard you say the creative or the curious leader. And, you know, as I was listening to you, I'm thinking, I wonder, is there a difference? What do you think? I mean, the experimental leader is one who, of course, is using experimentation as a way to help their teams succeed. What would you say the curious leader is? And is there a difference? Are they the same?
Yeah, I think they're the same. And I just want to, before I answer your question, I just want to touch back, because you used the word exploration and then quickly talked about experimentation. I love those two E's. And I think when I talked in my little presentation about mindset, like what makes curiosity hard, and a lot of it I think comes down to mindset. And I think there's a mindset that experimentation is wasteful. It's messy. It fights with efficiency, right? Like we have this strong affection, I would argue, addiction to efficiency. And so if efficiency is the brief, then no kidding, curiosity feels wasteful and annoying and messy, as does exploration and experimentation. So I think that mindset is, again, like setting the mindset and modeling behavior within an organization that says yes to experimentation and yes to exploration. Now, you can't stay in either of those all the time or else nothing gets out the door, certainly, but having that as an ethos, I think, is really powerful. I think the curious leader, you know, I think about, you know, sort of concentric circles, and I think about curiosity. There's so much that fits in curiosity. I think exploration fits, if this is the container of curiosity, exploration fits in there, discovery fits in there, experimentation fits in there. And in fact, that the piece that I was mentioning in the Harvard Business Review, there's some research that's being done on different kinds of curiosity that maps on top of some of the other concepts that we're talking about. So I think the curious leader is an experimental leader. They are an exploratory leader. They are somebody that understands that curiosity is not only the starting point, but the underpinning, the foundation for all of those other behaviors. For me, again, coming back to that fuel metaphor, it really is the fuel and the spark that lights all of those other mindsets and behaviors alight, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of years ago, a branding exercise I was doing with a graduate school, and we were working through their brand personality at the time. And curious was one of the words on the table. And that particular graduate school felt that curiosity was aimless. They felt it was too, and at the time, and I remember thinking, how unfortunate that mindset was, because I think that curiosity, to your point, while it may from the outside look aimless, it when you get inside of it, what it does is it drives us to collect data, because we're curious about things, right? And so we're collecting little pieces of data along the way, which lead us to a place that we couldn't have gone had we have been more directed. And you talked about constraints. And so that idea of being directed and curious, having constraints around it, how does that work? Because you're really creating a container for the curiosity. Is it possible?
Yeah, it's so possible. And I think we are living in a laboratory that proves that constraint is the oxygen for the fire of curiosity and creativity. Because right now we are living in there are so many constraints in our lives and in our work. We, up until very recently, we weren't really allowed to leave our homes, or it was recommended that we not. Our kids can't go to school. We can't work together in person with our teams anymore. And what that invites, that constraint, that super constrainty experience invites, okay, well, we can suffer through it and bemoan the situation. And, we probably need to do that first. We got to feel things to heal them and move through them. But the next phase of that is like, now what? Like, what are we going to do next? How might we make what's true better? What are all the ways that we can stay connected as a team when we're working apart? What if we, got rid of this assumption that working from home sucks? Why can't, it's just like this constant questioning. And I think that's doing that within a constrained situation or within a set of constraints helps us find the juiciest, most creative, most interesting ways to be in that constrained place. And then also, really importantly, how to get out of it, like how to move through it, move past it into a new reality that we actually can create, like that we can be part of giving shape to, rather than just like sitting back and waiting for something better to happen. It's like curiosity can kind of like, get us out of bed in the morning and into exploration, experimentation, and importantly, implementation mode. And I think, again, there's a bias or an assumption that curiosity has no business in the sort of implementation, execution part of an innovation process or design thinking process. No, it's not true. It needs to stay alive all the way through, and even after something has launched out into the world.
Karen, this has been an absolute pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
We are at time, but I know we've got you coming back next Thursday for the Changemaker 20. And I know you've got some things you want to tell us of what's going on in the world of curiosity. So I'm going to ask you to hold those, and maybe you can tell us about those next week, because I am really, really curious about that myself. We have.
And can I just say, I'm just see that Tanya has a question. I know we're out of time, but Tanya, if you want to email me directly, I'm really happy to talk about that one-on-one, or we'll bring that question. I'm just going to copy it just for myself, so we'll bring it into next week.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for
so we don't miss it.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us today. this has been fantastic. And again, I know the first time that Karen and I met, I think we had a half an hour meeting booked, and I believe we went 3 hours.
We did go 3 hours.
So I could
Yes.
talk to you all day, but we do have you coming back next week, and I am so looking
Yes.
forward to that. Next week, we have Lisa Taylor, the founder of Challenge Factory and an expert in the future of work. She's going to come and give us some really interesting insights on next week's uh, cha- uh, sense-making conversation. I am really excited to chat with Lisa. She's one of our roster speakers, and she has lots of insight around where work will be going in the future. Now, if you're interested in having more conversations with Karen, please make sure to reach out. We absolutely can connect you. Or if you're interested in having Karen come in and talk to your team, we can make that happen as well. Daniel is always happy to connect the right people. So please stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful Friday, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.